I need you to hear this before we go any further. You weren't crazy. You weren't too much. You weren't asking for too much. What happened in that relationship has a name, and today you're going to learn exactly what it was. Because what she was doing wasn't loving you in her own way, like she probably told you more than once. It was giving you just enough to keep you from walking away, but never enough to make you feel truly chosen. And that has a very specific name: breadcrumbing. Over the next few minutes, you'll see precisely how this mechanism worked, why you couldn't spot it while you were in it, and most importantly, why the decision to leave, the one that sometimes still makes you second guess yourself, was the smartest move you ever made. Not the easiest, the smartest. But before I show you what you actually gained by walking away, I need you to grasp something that completely reframes everything you went through. The issue was never how much you felt. The issue was how little she chose to give. And that difference changes everything. When most people picture a toxic relationship, they imagine yelling, insults, dramatic blow-ups anyone could spot from the outside. But what you experienced probably didn't look like that at all. It was far more subtle. And that's exactly why it was so much more dangerous. Breadcrumbing isn't one big event. It's not a massive fight, an obvious betrayal, or a single moment you can point to and say, that's where it broke. Breadcrumbing is worse. It's the slow drip of small absences repeated over time. It's the daily buildup of moments where you showed up fully and she was only half there, where you gave complete attention and she gave conditional scraps, only when it suited her, only when she had nothing better going on. I want you to understand a core psychological concept that explains perfectly why breadcrumbing is so addictive. It's called intermittent reinforcement. Psychologist B.F. Skinner discovered something fascinating in his experiments. When a reward comes unpredictably, the brain gets hooked far harder than when it's consistent. It's the exact principle that makes slot machines so addictive. You don't win every time, you win sometimes, and that sometimes keeps you pulling the lever. That's exactly what she did to you. It wasn't that she was never there. Sometimes she was. Sometimes she sent the sweet text, gave you the perfect night, made you feel like everything was finally right. And those moments were enough to wipe out weeks of indifference. You didn't stay for the bad days. You stayed for the good days that came just often enough to feed hope. Think about it. If she'd been ice cold from the start, you'd have left in month one. The problem was, she wasn't cold all the time. She was warm sometimes, just enough for you to think, there she is, the person I fell for. I just need to be patient. But that person wasn't hidden behind a tough phase. That person simply wasn't consistent. I call it strategic sufficiency. It's not that she sat down coldly calculating how little to give. She probably wasn't even fully aware. But the outcome was identical. Enough to stop you from leaving, never enough to make you feel secure. You lived in that constant gray zone between, I think she loves me, and I don't know if I matter to her. And that gray zone was exactly where she needed you to be. Because a man who's insecure in the relationship is a man who doesn't demand, doesn't confront, doesn't question what he's given. He just accepts. Quick mental exercise. Think back to your relationship and ask yourself 3 questions. First, who initiated contact most of the time? Second, when you needed emotional support, was she there with the same consistency you gave her? Third, did you ever feel like you had to earn her attention instead of just receiving it? If you're honest, you probably already have your answer. But the most dangerous part wasn't the breadcrumbs themselves. It was how she convinced you the problem was you. Now we get to the part that might hit hard because you'll recognize exact phrases you heard, and when you do, you'll see they weren't innocent truths. They were tools. There's a psychological term called gaslighting. In one sentence, it's when someone manipulates you into doubting your own perception of reality. Robin Stern, one of the leading researchers on this, wrote The Gaslight Effect, documenting how it gradually erodes self-trust until the victim no longer believes their own judgment. In your relationship, the gaslighting probably wasn't blatant. No one yelling, "You're crazy." It was far more elegant. It came disguised in 3 phrases that sound reasonable but did massive damage. First, "I need my space." Sounds healthy, right? Like someone with good boundaries. And yes, everyone needs personal space in a relationship. Totally normal. But there's a world of difference between genuine space and using that line as a get-out-of-jail-free card to prioritize everything except you. I need my space, often translated to, don't text me this weekend because I'm out with friends, but be available the second I want you. That's not space. That's hierarchy. And you weren't at the top. Second, I'm not the type to show much affection. This one's especially toxic because it forces you to lower your standards while disguising it as understanding. Direct translation: I'm not going to give you what you need, and if you complain, the issue is you don't accept me as I am. Perfect trap. Complain? You're the one who doesn't get it. Stay silent? You accept the crumbs quietly. No way to win. Third, and most destructive, you're too intense. This did something awful. It took your most basic human needs: reciprocity, attention, feeling like a priority, needs every person has a right to in a relationship, and reframed them as your personality flaw. Suddenly, wanting replies was intense. Wanting time together was intense. Wanting to feel chosen was intense. See what happened? She wasn't describing a trait. She was recalibrating your sense of normal. She kept moving the line of acceptable lower until accepting breadcrumbs felt like a feast. And the twisted part? It worked. It worked because you loved her. Because you trusted her version of reality more than your own. Because when someone you love says you're too much, you believe it, even when your gut screams otherwise. Let's do this now. Here's the real, no-filter translation of those phrases. I need my space. You're not my priority. I'm not the type to show much. You don't matter enough for me to make the effort. You're too intense. Stop asking for what you deserve because it makes me uncomfortable to give it. Harsh? Yes. Necessary? Absolutely. Because once you strip the disguise, the story flips. It's no longer you with the problem, it's her with a strategy. Conscious or not, the result was the same. She kept you in the relationship with minimal effort. Most videos stop here. They diagnose it, say, yeah, that was toxic, and leave you hanging. But I want to take you further, to the exact moment something inside you shifted, the moment of clarity. Because that moment wasn't what most people think. People assume clarity in toxic relationships hits like lightning, a dramatic revelation after a huge fight or betrayal. Sometimes it does, but especially in breadcrumbing dynamics, clarity doesn't strike like lightning. It builds like a drip, drip by drip, every time she canceled plans and you justified it. Every time she chose anything else over you and you told yourself, next time will be different. Every time she minimized your feelings and you swallowed the frustration. It all piled up. Not in your conscious mind, but deeper, in the place where you silently track what you give versus what you get. Relationship researcher John Gottman, after 40-plus years studying couples, calls it the distance and isolation cascade. Relationships don't die from one blow. They die from accumulation. Thousands of tiny moments where one person chooses not to show up, not to listen, not to prioritize. Each moment feels insignificant alone. Together, they're lethal. That's exactly what happened to you. No single dramatic event, just a quiet sum. Then one day, without anything especially catastrophic, the math completed. You looked at the relationship with clear, cold eyes, maybe for the first time in a long time, and the conclusion was devastatingly simple. This isn't worth what it costs me. Pay attention to something crucial about that moment. It wasn't emotional, it was rational. You didn't leave in rage. You didn't leave to punish her. You didn't leave hoping she'd chase. You left because the facts, the evidence stacked over months or years, proved something you could no longer deny. The breadcrumbs she gave didn't pay for the world you were giving in return. I want to give you something practical I call the 2-column exercise. You can do it in under 10 minutes. Grab paper. Left column, everything you did consistently in that relationship. Right column, everything she did with the same consistency. Not what she did sometimes, not when she felt like it, but what she did predictably, regularly. When you see those 2 columns side by side, you'll understand why the clarity wasn't impulsive. It was the inevitable result of an equation that never balanced. And that decision, to leave based on evidence, not anger, is probably the most mature thing you've ever done, even if it didn't feel like it then. It wasn't about getting her back. It was about getting you back. But now comes the part almost no one tells you. What happened after you left? Not to you. You already know the hard nights, doubts, temptations to reach out. I mean to her. What she discovered when you were gone. First, let's focus on you, because you need to see what you actually gained before we talk about what she lost. This isn't about revenge. Revenge serves nothing. Understanding the real value of what you did serves everything. The first thing you reclaimed, and probably the most precious, is agency. Agency is the power to choose, set boundaries, say, "This isn't enough for me," and act on it without needing anyone's permission. While you were in that relationship, your agency was held hostage. Every decision filtered through: how will she react? Will she get mad? Will she leave? You lived reactively, not proactively. By leaving, you took the wheel back. That's priceless. Second, your standards. After months or years of breadcrumbs, your idea of enough got completely warped. You reached a point where her replying to a text felt like a win, where her wanting to see you one weekend was a big deal. Think about it. Things that should be baseline in a relationship became achievements. By walking away, your standards started recalibrating. You remembered reciprocity isn't a luxury, it's a requirement. Being someone's priority isn't over the top, it's the bare minimum you should accept. Third, your energy. The mental and emotional toll of a breadcrumbing relationship is enormous, and you don't even notice while you're paying it. The energy spent justifying it to yourself and others, analyzing every text, gesture, silence for proof you mattered, managing your own frustration so you weren't too intense. All that energy, once used to keep something alive that she wouldn't support, now belongs to you. Your growth, your goals, your mental health, your next relationship where someone actually deserves you. Now, about her. Here's what I call the market paradox. It explains why she's paying a price she never expected. You were an anomaly. You accepted little but gave massively. How rare is that? Most people operate one of two ways: high standards and high demands, or low standards and low giving. You broke the pattern. Massive emotional investment, time, attention, effort, and in return, you took scraps. For her, it was the perfect deal: maximum return, minimum investment. But when you left, she hit market reality. And market reality is brutal. Now she has to find someone who gives what you gave. But she discovers two hard truths. First, people with dignity and healthy self-esteem don't accept breadcrumbs. They demand reciprocity from day one. If she wants what you provided, she'll have to give far more than she ever did with you, and she's not used to that. Second, the people who do accept breadcrumbs, those with low self-worth who take anything, usually don't have much to offer. Someone who doesn't value themselves rarely has the emotional bandwidth to give generously. See the trap? She lost the perfect combo: massive giver who accepted minimal. That dynamic doesn't repeat easily, not because you're irreplaceable as a human, we're all replaceable in some sense, but because what you two had was insanely lopsided in her favor. Now that it's gone, she realizes the unconditional devotion she took for granted was exactly that, a gift she never valued. Doesn't mean she'll come crying back. Maybe she will, maybe not. Honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is you understand the real, irreplaceable loss is hers, not yours. You lost someone who didn't value you. She lost someone who valued her anyway. Those two losses aren't equal. Let's recap what we covered so you carry this forward clearly. 1. Breadcrumbing wasn't imperfect love. It wasn't her unique way of caring. It was strategic sufficiency, giving just enough to keep you hooked with almost zero real effort. The same intermittent reinforcement that addicts people to slot machines was at play here, and it wasn't your fault you didn't see it. 2. The disguise. She used reasonable-sounding phrases to turn your legitimate needs into personality flaws. I need space. You're not my priority. I'm not affectionate. You don't matter enough for effort. You're too intense. Stop asking for what you deserve because it's uncomfortable for me. 3. Clarity. It didn't hit like lightning. It built like a drip. Accumulation of hundreds of moments where she chose less. When the equation balanced, the conclusion was rational, not emotional. This isn't worth the cost. Not impulsive, mature. 4. The price. You reclaimed agency, standards, energy. She lost an anomaly she won't easily replace. A massive giver who accepted minimal. The market paradox guarantees it. Now I want to say this straight, no filter. What you went through wasn't bad luck. It wasn't wrong timing. It wasn't different life stages. It was her consistent choice to give less, and your choice to leave wasn't failure. It was dignity. But, and this is key, the lesson doesn't end with understanding what happened. It ends with what you do next. If you don't raise your standards, if you don't internalize that reciprocity is the minimum, not the maximum, you'll find another version of her. Different name, different face, same breadcrumbs, and this time you have no excuse not to see it. Next time someone enters your life, don't ask if she loves you. Watch if she chooses you every day, without you begging, without you earning it. Because that's what you deserve, not crumbs. A real seat at the table. If this hit deep and helped you reframe things, smash the like button, subscribe to Relationship Psychology so you catch every truth drop, and comment below. What's one standard you're raising right now after this? Let's build that accountability together.